So welcome to my first thoughts on Elden Ring, a game that has been highly anticipated, and I've seen a few trailers, and that was it. And I've got something to admit today, is that I came in front of the camera, initially, this is my second time in front of the camera, and I sat here to give my first thoughts. And you know me, I can usually, blabber a dime a dozen, and just go absolutely into it, have no problem. There's been a few times in the show's history where I'm tongue-tied, I'm in awe, and I don't know what to say. And today was one of those moments. It was. I just had to start the camera again. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to talk. I'm just going to talk about this game the way I'm feeling about it, because I think that's what I'm going to do, is talk about it in an emotional level. And as I say, I knew what this was going to be like. I'm like, okay, an open world, Dark Souls game. I'm like, cool. And I'm like, I'm just coming off Horizon Forbidden West, which is an incredible game into its own right. This is not a comparison to those games. But wow, what a month. Two huge games like that. It's insanity. Never mind Cyberpunk getting patched for PS5. That's nuts. I mean, that puts me in a hell of a position right now to play all these games, and I feel very overwhelmed, to be honest. Very overwhelmed, but very grateful at the fact that I can play three big open world style of games like this. I mean, as a child, I couldn't have even imagined the future of video games looking like this. And that gets us into Elden Ring here. Yes, it's an open world Dark Souls game. We knew that, but I didn't know if it would work. It's funny, you play a game and in the first 10 minutes, you know if it's working. And in the first 10 minutes, the first half an hour, the first few hours, and then beyond that for me, I knew this was really working. And my God, so you pick your character, you step out into the world, and you feel that, wow, it feels very much like a Dark Souls style of game. And then you just look off into the distance when the game opens up, and you're like, oh my God, the draw distance. And you're like, this is the kind of feeling that you got in, obviously in the Elder Scrolls series and in Breath of the Wild, I got it. I'm like, look at that, you can go anywhere. But this time I sat there and I was like, this sounds funny, I was afraid as I looked around, and I'm like, this is scary. It's scary in its vastness, but also in the fear of what's lurking around the corner at any given moment. And there's a lot to be fearful of in this game, but yet there are ways just to kind of go through the game in a nice, orderly method, and you can avoid certain things. But you know what? Who wants to do that? You want to explore everything. And I started exploring this game, and it was so amazing just walking around, and I'm like, oh, look at that. It's like, there's a vulture there, there's an eagle there, and then you attack it. And then you're like, okay, cool, I get some items from it. I'm like, I like that. And it's like little enemies. And then off in the distance, you see some big enemies. And then you see some ruins. And then you see a forest. Then you see a swamp. Then you see some water. Then you see an island. And all of a sudden, I swear to God, I was sitting there and I'm like, oh my God, I got shivers. What do I do? Where do I go? The story is you're trying to put together the pieces of the Elden Ring. That's the main story. That's the simplicity of it. And that's where it's at. But my God, it's not about the story. It's about the world. It's about the world. And it's about exploring this world. And I haven't felt this kind of awe exploring an open world since Zelda, Breath of the Wild. And that was a game I gave a 10 out of 10 to. And this game, my God, I mean, I've only scratched the surface. I mean, it's crazy. The amount of stuff that you can do in this game. Yes, it's crafting and all of that stuff. All the movesets from Dark Souls games are there. That's there. You have amazing creature design. You have amazing animation on those creatures. Wow. And just going around, exploring, seeing all of these monsters, walking around, and you're like, I can go over there, but should I? And you're like, yeah, I will. I'll poke the beast, and then you get killed. And you're like, oh man, I didn't see he had two friends of his around the corner. And the animation on the creatures, as I'm just saying, incredible. And I played at 60 FPS, and I was blown away. I mean, It didn't take away anything from the graphical look of the game. Yes, I could have gone into high fidelity mode, but for me, having the better frame rate is the way I go. I should just say that for every game. I always go with the higher frame rate. And walking around, looking at the frame rate, I was like, this is great. Yes, there is pop-up. I do see pop-up happening. But I mean, what you're gaining for a little bit of pop-up once in a while to what you're gaining in the gameplay itself is extraordinary. And as I initially start saying, the game is eternally scary. Sometimes, you feel a little brave. You're like, no, I got this. I think this is okay. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, what is that over there? Should I go and take it on? Should I go into that ruin? Should I go for that extra treasure chest? Or should I just leave it alone? And that's the great thing. And that's what, I started talking about when I was a kid growing up. I couldn't have imagined experiences like this throwing me into an open world where I can do anything, any way that I want. I can die the way I want. I can go and explore the way I want. It's amazing, and it's a remarkable experience, and they've knocked it out of the park. They really have. And I mean, I've done a couple of first thought videos lately because the games have been so massive. They're absolutely massive. I mean, this game, I can't even begin to imagine the entire exploration that you can do in it. And so there'll be some people out there that'll be completionists that will want to do everything. And I am in awe of people who will attempt to do that, and I applaud them. And I think it's fantastic. And I mean, what a time, as I say, to be alive, to play some of these open world games that we get nowadays. I mean, I'm coming from a guy who came from the NES, right? So to go from the NES to go into Elden Ring and go, wow, what an action RPG was in the past, would say like Legend of Zelda, to this, couldn't have imagined. And I mean, we got to talk about the graphics, the textures, the attention to detail, and just the painting of the world, the fog, the day and night system. There's so much to take in and to absolutely adore, and as I say, to fear 100%. And I absolutely adore this game. I absolutely adore this game, and I'm going to attempt to go through as much as I possibly can, and to finish up, Forbidden West, and then to take on Cyberpunk. I mean, it's a little too much, isn't it? All of these games. I mean, but for anybody who is a Dark Souls fan, you're already playing the game. You already know that this is an amazing style of game. But for anybody else, let's go into that for just 1 second. If you're just kind of looking at this as a dark, kind of like a Breath of the Wild style game, yes, but there's Dark Souls combat in there, and a Dark Souls world environment. So if you die, you'll be back at a base camp, and you got to go and get your souls back and all that kind of stuff. That's still there, and so you can craft in the game as well. I would honestly say, for a new person jumping in that's never played a Dark Souls game, whoa, that might that might take your breath away a little bit. I mean, you'll die quite a lot, but you'll learn. I mean, that's what you got to do in these games. You learn. Even the Dark Souls games for me have always been very difficult. And I have friends of mine that are like, oh man, it's so easy. And I'm always kind of laughing to myself, and I kind of enjoy that. I've had better success with different Dark Souls games. I had a really better time with Dark Souls 3 than some of the other games. I found them really, really challenging. And this game, the challenge is there, but it's all about sometimes just defending, not just going in, swinging your sword, you'll die instantly. Never do that. Look at the patterns, learn the patterns, build up your character, and explore the world. And also look for alternative routes through a section. So if you see a bunch of skeletons down by the river and you're like, I'd like to get there, maybe you can go around the river to the other side. And that's what these open world games do, that keep me going, oh my God, I can't believe they can do this nowadays, and I can't believe that I get to explore this nowadays. They have painted the most beautiful game in front of me, and I was standing there looking at it, scrolling around, looking at the world going, this is remarkable, a game that I honestly never thought I'd see like this, not like this. And looking at possibilities of the Elder Scrolls series in the future, we're all pretty spoiled. We're all pretty spoiled with video games nowadays. So what do you guys think? Are you excited about Elden Ring? Let me know down below. Let me tell you, it's remarkable. It's incredible and it's deadly. That's for sure. So anyways, guys, until next time.